He is from Bloxroute and is going to break down intent networks and MEV supply chain. Thank you very much.
Is it working? All right, so hi everyone. I hope that you guys are caffeinated. I know it's after lunch, but I'll try to be somehow a small dose of caffeine. By the way, I really, really love this picture because it really summarizes what's going on with Ethereum and DeFi in general. Here you have, where is FTX? Okay, Coinbase is taking off. Oh, okay, yeah. FTX is on fire. You have here a tall building, Ethereum, and all the dApps. And you have different L2s that are trying to connect to this utopian city called Ethereum. You have Luna as well here. Look at the details. Well, great shout out to anyone who made this. And of course, you see that there is like no bridge, no connection somehow between Ethereum and Bitcoin. And I think that today's talk about scalability and everything will make some sense. So yeah, today talking about intents and how does that impact the dynamics of the MEV supply chain. Just a brief intro about me. So I'm a software engineer at Bloxroute. And what we do is we are running MEV infra across different chains, Solana, Ethereum, and BSC, working closely with block builders and searchers, traders, help them get fast and efficient trade on these networks. And yes, we are hiring. If you are interested, please come talk to me. So yeah, that's my X. So I hope that you are as excited as these guys to embark into this journey with me. So we can go through the why, the what, and the how of MEV, and how does that impact the MEV extraction. Note that I'll be saying MEV and MEV, so they mean the same things, just pronunciation stuff. So yeah, my very first idea I would like to share is that intents are everywhere. People are constantly moving from state 0 to state 1. If I'm in Babylon, for example, I wanted to trade a chicken for a fish, I want to go from a state 1, which is owning a chicken, to state 0 of not owning the chicken, but owning the fish. So the way I do that is I would first go knock on the doors of all my neighbors and see if anyone is interested in my chicken. If not, I would go to the market and just start shouting, who wants a chicken and in exchange of a fish? So intents are everywhere, but executing them was really, really bad, okay? So what happens over time is that we were getting constantly better and better in providing platforms and ways for people to execute their intents safely and efficiently. Whether it's a barter to a simple intent of going from point A to point B, what you would do is just to take your Grab or Uber and just put your departure, arrival, and that's it. And the whole platform would take care of all the technicalities of finding the closest driver, the fastest way, etc., etc. So my very point here is that Web2 companies understood that early. They understood that people, users, generate intents, okay? And if you are able to execute those intents in a very efficient and fast way, then you are creating the value. Because right now, as the other talk said, Web3 is losing its charm. And even Vitalik says that there is like a creativity freeze. I think that the very best thing that would unlock this freeze would be building an intent-centric world so that people can have a smooth user experience on DeFi. And that's kind of the big thing. And if you are building a dApp, building an application on any platform, and you are not considering intent, then you are in a treat. And of course, if you are so unlucky, you would go from state 0 of having 0 pizza to 10,000 BTC to state 1 of having 1 pizza and 0 BTC. Yeah. So what are intents? Intents are basically the idea of describing the output you want without caring about the process. I want to have an NFT X given 1 ETH. I don't care about how do you execute that, how best to achieve it. All I care about is getting my NFT. So the very core idea behind intents is to distinguish between 2 things. Users have explicit preferences and implicit preferences. If I go to Uniswap interface and I put 1 ETH, this is my explicit preference. I want to swap 1 ETH for whatever USDT will that be. But my implicit preferences is that I'm allowing Uniswap to set the slippage, and also I'm accepting as little as X amount because of the fees, etc., that will go to LP and to the network fee. And of course, these are customizable, but for somehow an average Joe wouldn't customize slippage. They wouldn't even know what a slippage is. And we have also non-customizable preferences, which is in this case, you can't tell Uniswap to use another liquidity pool besides its own, okay? So today, my point is all about working on the implicit preferences and making them easily customizable for people without letting do any grudge work. So that's exactly what happened when you tell people about implicit preferences and how they can get them wrecked. So intents have so many use cases. I'm not going to go through them, but you can basically say, I want to exchange USDC for USDT. I don't have ETH. Please pay for the gas using my USDC. You can also, if I'm a bank, for example, I want to execute a swap, I can say, please execute this swap with only regulated VASPs, for example, or licensed VASPs in these states. So I'm clearly explaining my intent, saying that I only want to trade with company who are registered or block builder who are OFAC compliant or whatever. And of course, I can also ask my transaction to be batched or my intent to be batched for gas efficiency, etc. So why intents? Why do we care about intents? Why do we want to transition from a transaction-centric DeFi to an intent-centric DeFi? 3 points. First point is that DeFi is becoming more and more fragmented. Liquidity is available cross chains. We have seen Manta Network, and we have tens of L2s. We have Solana, we have Cosmos. It's a lot of networks, and liquidity by nature exists everywhere. And for me, when I want to trade some executed trade, I'm not aware of that liquidity. I'm not aware of whether trading on Ethereum would be better for me or trading on Polygon would be an even better option, because first I'm saving on the gas fees, and maybe there is like an arbitrage opportunity there. So liquidity is fragmented. Execution as well. Like right now we have ZK VMs, we have optimistic rollups, we have off-chain EVMs, and the whole Ethereum roadmap is all about building this L2-centric ETH, where you have a bunch of parallel EVMs being running off-chain. Also the logic. If you take, for example, Stacknet, it has its own native language called Cairo for you to write smart contract. And for me, going from ETH to Stacknet, I not only need to learn Solidity, but I also need to learn Cairo. So, and the logic there could be different. There are some certain constraints with their compiler, et cetera, et cetera. So the logic of things, logic of swaps, logic of execution also changes depending on which network I'm on. So this is like a transaction-centric world. Right now, this is what's going on. We have Eve. She wants to buy an NFT. But she only has DAI. OK, I only have 100 DAI. I want to buy this NFT. But this NFT contract only accepts ETH. What I'm going to do is, unfortunately, I couldn't find a DAI ETH liquidity pool. I would first execute the first trade, which is get some USDC, and then from USDC get some ETH, and only then get my NFT. Here, I'm expanding the surface of attack because I'm exposing myself to so much MEV here. Like searchers can front run me on the first trade, can sandwich me on the second, etc., if I screw up on setting the slippage. So the idea is if with the current transaction-centric model, users are always exposed to MEV, and because they certainly don't know what's the best route for them to execute their trade. So an intent-centric world would be like this. Eve would go, can anyone fulfill this for me? You can keep the change. I'm only willing to give up 100 DAI for this NFT X. That's it. I don't care about what you're going to do to execute it. I only care about you taking 100 DAI and giving me the NFT. And then we have some actors, which we call solvers, fillers, who are these guys, I'm going to get to them in a second, who are like the big OGs who understand the liquidity, where it is, and the best routes for you. And they would say, OK, I'm going to do it. So because they know exactly all the liquidity pools and what's the best route, they would split the trade. They would take half of that DAI and swap it to SDC, half of it to USDT, and then the rest to ETH. And from ETH, they will go to NFT. And at the end, they got to save one DAI, and they get to keep it. So this is kind of how efficient trades are really, really important for you. And that's why also outsourcing your intents is really important because of how much you can save, and yep. So yeah, we have current router. You would go from, let's say I have this amount of compound token. I can either use this regular router or an auto router, but since with Uniswap 3, liquidity will be behind some hooks, so it will be so much difficult to maintain those auto routers. And that's why we definitely need intent. So who are the solvers? So solvers are basically entities running some highly, highly complicated algorithms that are constantly pulling liquidity from different sources. Think of them as searchers, but also not only searchers, but solvers, because they are able to get you the best route for your transaction to get executed. We think that they are honest solvers, they are honest actors, since they wouldn't do anything bad with your intent. They listen to liquidity, as I said, and it's also going to be a permissionless. Right now, it's not really permissionless. You need to get permission to be a solver. But the idea is for anyone who is capable of providing best solution to be able to participate into this open auction. So a solver would get intent because of the matching, routing, and the heavy lifting computation they are willing to do. They would either go to an aggregator on layer 1, layer 2, or simply go to use a peer-to-peer network if there is like a coincidence of want. And this is the whole idea behind the call protocol. If I'm willing to buy USDT and someone is willing to sell USDC and buy in USDC, so you get the idea. We can just save up on the LP fees and network fees and just do the exchange of chain. Or I can just simply go to a centralized exchange, but no one loves centralized exchanges because you need to get KYC'd. So here is what the landscape looks like. Users are creating intents, solvers. They could be a DAO. They could be independent solver. They could be a community of solvers. We'd go from the discovery to the creation of transaction and then land into the settlement layer, which would be either of any chain. It could be, I have one BNB, I want to get some ETH, I don't care, so the solvers would do the bridging, etc. for you, because you don't know exactly which is the best bridge for you and how safe is that bridge. So intents are something working. It's not just a chimera. We have protocols doing intents. We have COW protocol. Go check it out. It's, as I mentioned, it's an intent protocol where we have solvers, tens of solvers, and anyone, by the way, can go do solving there and get the native token of the protocol. And this is like the transaction world when we have MEV share, transaction boost by block native, and MEV blocker. And yeah, so I'm a little bit running out of time. So at Bloxroute, we have an intent network. So if you are a solver, if you are a DApp, and you are generating, or you want to consume intent, you can just connect to the network and get be the first one to get those intents, to solve them. Or if you're a DApp, you can just make sure you are connected to the best solvers and making sure that intents of your users are getting as fast as possible to the solvers. So yeah, definitely the future would be to have a domain-specific language for intent. Let's say we want to have something similar to GPT telling, hey, please take whatever BNB from my wallet, and I want to have 10 ETH. That's it. I don't want to interact with any interface. I don't want to connect my wallet. I just want to have human language kind of interaction, yep. So, of course, there is risk of centralization, solvers getting bigger, having more and more complex algorithms. The requirements for the hardware are going to be really, really interesting. So there is a high risk of solving being only at the hands of very few elite actors. And then there is also the solving incentive. What if I submit an intent, but no solver is excited or is interested in solving my intent? So the idea is that what COW protocol did is to incentivize solvers by their own native token. So you actually not only get to keep whatever MEV it is created there, but you also get some of their token just to incentivize people to solve intents. This is the current MEV landscape on Ethereum. You have transaction. You have a transaction, you have two options. Whether you go to the public mempool, this is where you're going to be eaten alive by bots who are constantly listening to the mempool transaction. They basically going to sandwich you, and yeah, that's bad for you. And then you have the second option, which is use private mempools. And how you do that is by basically submitting your transaction to builders like Bloxroute, or you can submit it to an order flow auction like MEV share or MEV blocker. The idea behind this order flow auctions is to create like a conditional order flow where a user would say, OK, I'm going to submit you my transaction, but I would want to only share with you the call data or only the from and to addresses. And whatever MEV you get to create, I want to get a share of it. And that's exactly what's happening with MEV share. So MEV share would take your transaction, would share it, broadcast it to searchers. Searchers going to backrun you, and they're going to send you like 90% out of that MEV that gets created from a transaction. And yeah, that's if you want to participate in this auction, you can do it, or you just submit that as a private transaction. And then we have builders running low infra, low latency infra, and high complex algorithms to build most profitable block. And then from the builders, we send the block to the block proposer. This is after the PBS. An intent-centric MEV landscape would be intents being added to this intent pool, solver solving the intent. So the solver would take care of the execution. So they will construct the transaction. You don't have to worry about any front running or sandwiching. These guys know exactly what's the best way to submit the transaction. Then transactions from solver would go to the builder, and from builder go to proposer. So there is this saying that intents can cure cancer, but they would never cure MEV. So MEV within an intent-centric landscape would be like a service fee for me. It's going to be more it's going to be fair because you have solvers competing between each other. Let's say I want to go from point A to point B, and I'm sharing my intent with both Uber and Grab. So I would expect those two to compete so they can find me the best and cheaper ride instead of just eating me alive or getting me wrecked. So this is kind of how MEV gets mitigated within an intent landscape. As long as we have healthy competition, as long as we have an open protocol for anyone, then MEV gets to be more fair. And yeah, so my time is up, and thank you so much. If you have any more questions, I'll be here. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that, Soufiane.
Thank you.